Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things. All right, hello. Welcome to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. I'm Alison Nissen, and today I'm here with Alec Shane. Alec, give me your 1-minute elevator pitch on who you are and what you do.
1 minute. All right. I'm an agent at Writer's House. I've been there since 2008, where I started as an intern and kind of just kept doing the corporate ladder thing, I guess. Love it. And my list is very eclectic. It's all over the place in terms of juvenile to adult, middle grade, horror stories, adventure stories, shenanigans, kids who are thrust into extraordinary circumstances. I love mysteries and thrillers on the adult side as well, horror novels on the adult side as well, anything sports related. I love military nonfiction and military history, American history. I guess if I had to kind of boil it all down into just one little blurb, it would be kind of just boy and dude books. And dad reads, I guess.
Dad reads. Yeah. Oh, there's a whole genre right there.
Things you buy people for Father's Day.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. That is a big list of things that you like to read.
It is. I'm all over the place. I like to read. If you didn't like to read, I'm in the wrong business. So, I kind of make sure that the books I enjoy reading myself are the books I try to get into the world.
That's right. They always say if you haven't found the book you want to read, that you should write it.
Amen.
However, not everyone should be writing books. That's a whole other story. All right. How about what's your favorite book?
All-time favorite book is probably Danny the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl. It's one of those books that not many people know about of his. It's kind of a smaller one. It's basically about a boy and his father who live in a gypsy caravan and pump gas, who foil a pheasant hunting scheme from their wealthy next door neighbor and how they foil it. It's really heartfelt, it's fun, and it's a good father-son story. You don't see many of those in the world, so I really enjoy that one.
Awesome. How about a little bit where you're from?
I grew up in a really small town called Essex, Connecticut. It's a great place if you're a old school steam train enthusiast. You have a really old steam train, but that's kind of where the buck stops. A great place to grow up, great place to be a kid, but I had to get out of there, so now I live in New York City.
I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. Yeah. I understand the idea of needing to step away and step out, but every now and then I miss that. How about dogs and cats?
I'm so much a dog person. It's not funny. I'm allergic to cats, so it's probably skews it in dogs' favor regardless. But I grew up with St. Bernards my entire life. Just these big, massive, slobbering, just like affectionate love beasts, and I want one very badly, but living in a small New York apartment is not very St. Bernard conducive. It's very conducive to cats, but I just can't do cats. And cat people, they don't freak me out at all, but there's something about people that own a lot of cats that I can't quite get my mind around. So I just find the dogs are more my style.
But you don't mind wearing the dog shedding blanket?
I wear it like a badge of honor. I'm like covered in slobber and dog hair. That means a person that's a lot of love to give. Someone that's covered in dog's hair and slobber.
Absolutely. Top 5 favorite movies.
Ooh, so number 1 is definitely Rocky, for sure. I love Dumb and Dumber, Lloyd and Harry. I'm so heartbroken they made a sequel because it was just so bad. It was just so bad.
Some things aren't meant to be a sequel.
And that was one of them. Caddyshack, Braveheart, and Jaws. I round out my top 5 list.
All right. And speaking of sequels, what about books with sequels?
Well, they're great if the sequel kind of comes naturally. I think a lot of times what people do is they see these trilogies doing really well and they have these 4 or 5 book arcs that are selling so popularly. So they'll write book 1 as one big setup for book 2. And that's where the problem comes in my opinion. Book 1 has to stand on its own, otherwise the sequel's not going to work. But if the sequel's done right and the book 1 ends well enough to make a sequel relevant, I think it's a really, really good thing. But you shouldn't write book 1 with the book 2 in mind, otherwise it can kind of go off the rails.
So I'm thinking of The Hunger Games. I don't read a lot of trilogies, but I'm thinking of The Hunger Games. The first book did stand alone.
Totally.
And the second 2 felt like it was cut in half.
It's funny. I read and loved First Hunger Games. Loved it. And I saw the ending. I'm like, all right, I see a political uprising and a love triangle coming. There's more for me if I want it. I didn't really need to keep reading at that point. I got everything I need to get out of that book. That's always the book I use as the ultimate example of a well set up book 1. You can read book 1 and stop and get a great story. If you want to keep going, you can. I didn't, and I don't look back on it. So that's a great example.
How did you get into publishing?
I feel like I wish I'd known when I was younger how much right place, right time really matters in life, because I didn't know what publishing was. I knew books got written. I knew they were put on the shelf in some capacity, but I didn't know anything else in between. And I
They
was
just
in,
magically appeared.
yeah, I mean, I knew there were like 8 editors, but like I didn't know anything about the process at all. And I was in LA working as a stuntman of all things because I was young and single and stupid, and why the hell not? I had nothing else to do in my life at that point in time. And one thing I learned about stunts is A, there's not a lot of money in it unless you're a stunt double. I don't look like anybody in Hollywood, so I had no chance of being a stunt double. And two, you can't do it for very long. It's not a career a 45-year-old man can do, getting thrown through plate glass windows and taking punches to the face. So I thought for my mental and physical longevity, I'd get out of there. And I originally came to New York to get into finance, actually. Not because I wanted to be into finance, but because it was kind of something to do, and my dad recommended it. And I moved to New York in June of 2008, which is literally the month when the housing bubble burst and the economy collapsed and the financial world as we knew it kind of went kaplooey. And that stunk because moving to New York isn't cheap, and I had no job opportunities. So I was like, well, I like sports. I'm a sports guy. I like to read. I could find a book job or a sports job. And so I literally Googled the word book jobs. Kind of through the internet navigation maze, I found the Writers House website. I cold called them. I sweet talked my way in the door, got an internship, and here I sit all these years later.
Ah, do you like coming to the conferences?
I do. I really enjoy it. It's good networking with other agents. You don't really talk to agents that much as an agent. You're dealing with editors and authors a lot. It's really good to get a personal connection with the authors. You really can learn so much about somebody from an email. You learn about the book, but not really the person. It's good to make those connections, and it's really good to kind of put your name out there and be somebody who's on the circuit. And everyone's really friendly. The writing community in general, they're all good people. They're all very encouraging. They're all very supportive. And it's kind of a nice refresher once in a while because writing and being in writing and publishing is a very solitary business, right? You're behind a desk or behind a computer doing it on your own. So it's always good to come out there and share some stories and commiserate and celebrate with each other. And it's a nice refresher for me. And plus, it's Florida in October. So it's never a hard way to get me down here for that.
All right, tell me, what advice can you give? So let's suppose I'm a new author
Mhm.
and I've scheduled an appointment. What do I do?
Yeah, I think the biggest, I guess, error authors make at conferences and approaching agents is they think that we're like intimidating and we're stern and we're going to shoot them down and that we don't want to be here. And I think that's the biggest thing that's not true because we're here because we want to be here. We come here to meet authors, to network, and to sign clients. Like a very successful conference for me would be if I were to come down here, I were to get 10 pitches, leave with 10 clients. Like that would be a dream scenario for me. So every time I sit down to talk to an author about his or her book, be it at a pitch session, be it at the bar afterwards, be it anywhere throughout the conference halls, I'm really excited to hear about the book and I want to like it really, really badly. I can't sign everybody I take on, everyone I talk to, excuse me, but I come into every single session, every single interaction with an author really excited to like their book and give it a good chance. I have to be selective because that's just the nature of the business. But I don't think authors should think or be intimidated by pitch sessions or worried about pitch sessions. You have something that I want, and you have to have that mentality because otherwise it's just going to be a very awkward, kind of uncomfortable interaction. I wish authors would relax more during approaching agents because there's really nothing to be scared of.
You don't have fangs?
Now, last time I checked, I did work on Twilight with Stephanie Meyer and Jodie Reamer, but it didn't really translate. So
So how would the next step be? Let's suppose you and I have a great rapport. I've written the perfect father-son story
all
that
right,
you love, and you're like, this is my book. I want to have this out by Father's Day of next year, or 2 years, or
2 years
4 years.
probably,
How long
yeah.
does it go? What would be the next step? I mean, how does that work? So I've pitched to you, and
Yep.
now I send you my manuscript.
All right, so I've read your manuscript. I love it. I will usually send you an email saying, listen, I love this. I really enjoyed it. I love to set up a conversation on the phone. Let's find a time to talk on the phone about representation, what I expect of you, what you expect of me, what my process is. And we have a phone call where it's basically you interviewing me and me interviewing you to make sure we're a good match. Not every agent and author is the right fit in neither a good way nor a bad way, just different personalities, different management styles, whatever the case may be. And so it's all about that phone call to make sure my vision for the book aligns with yours. Any questions or trepidations you may have, I can address and put to ease. And if that phone call goes very well and you choose to accept my offer, which you don't have to do as an author, every author doesn't have to accept an offer given to him or her by an agent, then I will send you an agency agreement. We will sign the agreement that just lays out what the author-agent relationship is contractually. And from there, I will probably edit it with you until it's ready to go. I usually am very heavily involved in the editorial process because it's getting harder and harder to sell books in this current market, regardless of genre. So I'm very careful to make sure that the book is as strong as it can possibly be before it goes out. And I will do that for as long as necessary. And then when it goes out, I will send it to the editors I think are the best fit for it. If all goes well, we'll knock on wood, and hopefully at least one editor will want it. Hopefully more editors will want it, so we can have a nice little bidding war going. That's where it's really fun. And then the book sells to a publisher, and then you have an editor, and you're going to be a published author in a couple of years or whenever the publishing calendar dictates it. And that's when the real fun starts. We're talking about publicity and marketing and cover blurbs and all that good stuff. So that's kind of that's going to be if I were to meet a client at this conference this weekend, that's probably the next 18 months of our lives together over that process.
What about somebody who's self-published already?
Self-publishing is kind of an interesting conversation. Some people think self-publishing is a huge stigma. It's something you should be avoiding at all costs. And it's a decision you have to make, and you have to make sure you go in there with the right attitude. I think the worst part about self-publishing is people will do it after basically giving up on the traditional route. They'll say that this book isn't working, I give up. I'll go back green to the whole thing. That's the joy of editing, right?
All right, technical difficulties. Okay,
all
click.
Right. Yeah, so self-publishing is really a two-edged sword in a lot of ways. I think there's really a lot of success can be had self-publishing as long as you're going to it with the right attitude. You're not doing it because this book's not good enough to make it elsewhere, and I've already written it, so I'm just going to throw it up there and see what happens, which happens a lot, I think. Not every author needs an agent necessarily, honestly, to be honest. If you're really good at marketing and promotion and you know how to negotiate well and you're able to get yourself out there, maybe self-publishing is the way to go, and you can have that success that way. But I think that if you want to try and go the traditional route, you need to stick to that and commit to it. And maybe the book you can't sell to an agent or can't give to an agent isn't the one that breaks you out, and you put it aside for a while and you come back to it. So I think self-publishing can work as long as it's done with the right attitude and not as a kind of resort. And I know that some authors think that if they self-publish a book, they can't go traditional. I don't think that's true, personally. I do say once you self-publish a book, like that book is published, it's out. You can't query an agent with a self-published book because you take self out of it. It's published, it's out. You can always go your new book, whatever your next book is. If you find that self-publishing didn't really do it for you, that's fine. But if you choose to self-publish, do so carefully and know that once you self-publish it, that's it for that book in that scenario. Unless it sells, like The Martian, like 25 or 50,000 copies. And then at that point, agents will come to you and editors will come to you as opposed to you trying to shout to them.
Aha, there's the secret. Yeah. All right, I'm curious. So you live in New York City.
I do.
And there's a huge writers market, there's just a vibe for writers in New York City. Do you run into writers a lot, other agents, publishers? Is it like you get to rub elbows, or is it randomly you don't really get to see many people because you've got your nose to the grindstone? And
I see other editors mainly at editor networking events. There'll be publishing related events, happy hours, drinks, meetups, whatever the case may be. I'll see them at that. Very rarely do I see editors out and about when I'm doing my thing on weekends or whatever. Maybe it's because we operate different social circles. I spend most of my weekends either reading or watching sports. So that's morally at a sports bar doing that. You don't see editors at that. Do I run into writers? I do a lot. Usually it's through 2 or 3 degrees of separation. I will be out talking at a party or whatever, and hey, what do you do for a living? That's standard small talk we all have to do as adults for some reason. These stupid questions were required by law to ask other adults. And when they find out I'm a literary agent, I'm like, oh man, somebody's writing a book. Either I'm writing a book, or my mom's writing a book, or my dentist's cousin's step-niece is writing a book. And that's always how it works. And everyone thinks they have this book to sell me. So I meet writers a lot, but not the writers I want to meet usually. That's the problem.
All right. I'm going to move to our rapid fire.
Yes, go.
I'm going to do a quick click, because we're gonna do this. I'm gonna try to music in and music out, and then have it. So fancy. We're gonna give this a shot. So I'm gonna click. All right, rapid fire.
Go.
Yankees or Mets?
Mets. Red Sox fan.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Hate doing that.
Would you go to Mars?
I had to.
If you had to. Meaning, like, we're about to implode?
Yeah. But, like, I mean, I guess if it was, like, Total Recall situation where, like, you go on vacation to Mars, I'd do that. I wouldn't be part of, like, the first ever voyage to Mars. I think Earth's pretty cool, for now, at least.
All right. Alec Shane, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is Alison Nissen with the Florida Writer Podcast. Alison out. Alec Shane is a publishing agent with Writers House Literary Agency. For more information, visit www.writershouse.com. This podcast was recorded live at the 17th annual Florida Writers Conference. For more information on the Florida Writers Association, visit floridawriters.net.